Is a career in the kitchen in your future? Tonight, the culinary arts in Hampton Roads and the schools that cook up success. This is What Matters. Good evening, I'm Kathy Lewis. Considering the number of cooking schools at home in Hampton Roads, we should all be able to whip up a pretty flawless souffle by this time. The culinary field is one that's exploding as more people eat out, either by choice or because of busy schedules, and as more military people get out of the service and put those GI Bill benefits to work. We'll consider the growth in culinary arts in Hampton Roads with a panel of culinary arts instructors. Chef Jonathan Highfield is with the Culinary Institute of Virginia. Chef Dedra Blount joins us as well. She's with Culinary Institute. And joining us from the Art Institute of Virginia Beach, Chef Paul Kennedy. And also with us, Chef Deanna Frerich, who's a culinary arts instructor at Tidewater Community College. Thanks to all of you for being with us today. Since you're all here, I'm wondering who's on the grill, right? I'm a little bit worried about that. Chef Highfield, I wonder, what explains this explosion of culinary arts schools in the region?
Well, I think it's actually a sort of a national thing that's been going on recently. I think with the advent of food TV and all the program that's out there, the top chefs of the world and Chopped and all that, I think it's generated a lot of interest at a national level that I think is seen throughout the country of people saying, wow, I think that might be something I want to do. And whether that's a good thing or a bad thing, I think the jury's still out.
Whether it's a good thing or
because I think people don't, I don't think a lot of the shows show the reality of what a kitchen really is like.
Okay.
The fact that the hours are long and hard and you start at the bottom and you work your way up. And I think those are the realities that is important for people to understand before they get into the business and realize that, wow, this is a lot harder than I really imagined.
So is everybody angry like that cranky chef on television?
No, hopefully not.
Yeah.
Unfortunately, they do exist still in this day and age, but for the most part, I think there's a lot of very pleasant people to work with.
I love it.
In this field. So,
Chef Paul Kennedy, you're not like that cranky one, are you?
I'm going to try not to be today.
Okay, fair enough. You know, I wonder, we talk about, Chef Highfield mentioned this whole business about the degree of interest there is in these food networks now and everything that we know about food, which seems to be so much more than we knew 10, 15 years ago. What do you notice? What kinds of students are coming to your program at the Art Institute?
We have a fairly diverse group of students that are arriving there. We have some students that have never set foot in a commercial kitchen before, and we have also students that have spent numerous years in military service in the kitchens, and we have some that have spent years just in regular civilian kitchens that are looking to enhance their skills and gain some accreditations to go with them.
And what could one get at the Art Institute? What sort of degree or what sort of certification?
We have bachelor's degrees and associate degrees right now, and we're also beginning to introduce some diploma programs.
I see. And I think you have a program in is it a degree program in pastry?
No, ma'am. We're getting ready to begin the diploma program in baking and pastry.
The diploma program in baking and pastry. That just sounds divine. I'm not going to lie to you. When I think about things that there would be to study, I think that sounds pretty good.
Yeah,
and you came from Tampa, right? Who's the Art Institute?
Yes, ma'am. I've been with the Art Institute
well.
about 6 years and moved up as an instructor from an adjunct position up to full-time, and then was promoted to my current position as a director.
And I think you and several of our other guests as well are evidence of the impact of the GI Bill here in Hampton Roads, right? Because, I mean, your company did a lot of looking and a lot of searching before they determined where they were going to put an institution, and they discovered this place.
I believe that's true, yeah. We're the largest organization of culinary schools in the country, so we're spread out anywhere from down in Miami up to, we have a school in Vancouver, British Columbia, and several.
That's fascinating.
All over the country.
All over the country. Chef Deanna Frerich, you come by all of this honestly. You were and I guess are still trying to get out of the business, but they're not letting you out of the private catering business, right?
Right, yes. I have owned my own catering business for over 15 years, catering events from as intimate and small as 10 people to over 1,500. I do a lot of kosher events as well, kosher cooking, which I think is just fascinating, and I like to introduce my students to that. And I started teaching at TCC about 2006.
Yeah.
Yes.
What drew you to teaching?
Just the instructional, and you can see when a student really enjoys it, that light bulb that goes on over their head, that they want to learn how to make beautiful and delicious food. And to me, it was kind of a full circle after working in the industry for so many years that I've had the opportunity to now teach.
Chef Deidre Blount, nice to have you with us today as well. Now, you're also with Culinary Institute of Virginia, and so you also do programs for the general public. Yes. So if we didn't really necessarily think we wanted to commit to a degree program, we could come there and just try our hand at one or two things.
Yes, we have casual gourmet programs. We normally do about a minimum of 4 classes each month from 6 p.m. to about 9 p.m. with our chefs and then some chefs in the area. So you can come in and take a class on sushi. And tonight we have a brunch class. Then we have classes for children, and our chefs are the ones that help to put those programs together. So it's usually a one night, and we take all different types of suggestions and requests for things.
And so children's programs is an interesting element. There's a private venture I think called Young Chefs Academy in town that's doing some interesting things too. And it's intriguing to look at the connection between teaching children to cook and what we see going on with the childhood obesity epidemic. I've been watching Chef Jamie Oliver this week, who's now trying to get the Los Angeles school system to come around. He's having a hard time, by the way.
Very true. What I've noticed, even with my own children, is that the more involved they are in the cooking process, the more likely it is that they're going to eat it.
Yeah.
So if I can get them involved in the very beginning process so they can see the herbs and the different vegetables, then they're very proud of their product and they're going to want to taste it.
Sure.
And they do a lot better with, the dinner battles that we have oftentimes.
Makes perfect sense. I wanted to be sure, Chef Frerich, I didn't ask us about TCC. What sorts of degrees or certificate programs does TCC offer?
We have an Associate in Applied Science and Culinary Arts degree. We also have certificate programs in catering management, kitchen management, and classical cuisine.
Right. And at the Culinary Arts Institute, what do you have?
Yes,
Institute of Virginia. Sorry.
We have AS in Culinary Arts, and we have a bachelor's degree that's involved in food and beverage management.
Food and beverage management. So that would be somebody who wanted to say maybe manage a restaurant or something like that.
Exactly, and that's what it's geared towards. And there's a culinary aspect of that as well, but it's mostly in the business side of the things.
See, I find that very interesting, and I hope you will I can beg your forgiveness for this, but I find sometimes when chefs want to be managers of restaurants, that sometimes it works brilliantly well, and sometimes it just doesn't work well. What's behind that?
I think it's just the difficulty of the business. Somebody said to me there's a few things that put people out of this business, and one of the big ones is not understanding the business as it is, not understanding the long hours, the commitment, the money. The failure rate is astronomical for most independent restaurants. The sanitation involved, and that's all things that we really push to have students understand, is that it can be a fairly difficult business to be involved in. But
so we sent our cameras, Lisa Godley and friends, out to talk to some of the students that are underway in a variety of culinary schools in Hampton Roads. Let's take a look.
Come to this school and you're allowed to mess up. You come here and they just guide you along the way, and they teach you everything you need to know, and it's a great program. But my favorite thing about it is probably just how this is all just a big family.
I like that they teach different regions of food, so I can learn everything from doing international to baking, so I'll get to experience everything.
I like to cook. It's something I've done since forever with my mom. Then through high school, I was in like culinary. I always took home economics, they called it in high school. And I just ended up, life happened, and I eventually said I want to go back and start cooking again.
Actually, an interest of mine is fusion cooking, which is like blending of two different cultures. Because I'm half British, Jamaican, and Nigerian. So kind of that's what I've been around since I was young, to find a way to blend all of it successfully. Open up a restaurant last.
It prepares you for a career because you're in the school to learn about everything, and then you actually go out into externships and be in the business. So when you do graduate, you can just go and you go to the kitchen ready.
Wow, go to the kitchen ready. So one of the things I noticed in the in the tape we just saw of the students is that they were all wearing chef's hats. And what's the origin? Does anybody know the origin of that hat? I mean, because you kind of look at it, you kind of wonder about that.
Interesting history.
There's a couple of different, I believe it was Karem who had started wearing the hat, and from what I understand, what I've read, is that there would be a large kitchen and so many people, so to determine who was in charge, they had the tallest hat on.
The tallest hat. Okay, so where do we get that little puffy thing on the top there? Because some of them are just straight, the toques, right? The toques.
Toque,
And then, so where'd that come from? Was that just someone trying to be different?
Probably, who knows? There's so many speculation about
Yeah.
the history. I mean, as I always tell students when anything that they do, I'm like, look, guys, nobody did really any of this on purpose.
It's just sort of evolved.
Nobody laminated a dough on purpose where you roll butter in the dough. Somebody messed that up.
Right.
I mean, who's the first person to ever eat a lobster?
Yeah.
I mean, that's a gutsy person. The first person to eat a crab and say, ooh, that looks good, or the first person who says, well, the leaves of the rhubarb are poisonous, but let's try the stalk now and see how that is. I mean, that takes some guts, you know. It's pretty amazing to think about it.
That's pretty good. That's pretty good. And so as you think about these, particularly these folks coming out of the military, really trying to maximize their GI benefits, it sounds like to me they're trying to get a lot of studying in a short period of time because of some anxiety around whether those benefits are still going to be there.
I'm not real well versed in that department, but yeah, I know there is a time limit on that, and what we're finding is that more of our military students are far more disciplined and much more structured as far as how they go about entering the kitchen, how they go about doing their assignments, and that type of thing. So,
can you tell a difference from somebody who has been in a military kitchen to somebody who hasn't?
Yes.
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 And what do you notice?
The uniforms.
Oh, yeah. Absolutely.
The uniforms.
More caring, yeah.
As
You
soon
mean
as
that
they
their
walk in,
appearance is
Right.
just more squared
Yeah.
away?
Shiny shoes,
the way they
iron
walk,
pressed
the way their
jackets.
uniforms are pressed.
Oh, yeah.
And, you know, they're just very serious about what they're doing. And a lot of them may not have worked in a military kitchen.
Right.
They were just,
But they
in,
were
the
just in the
military,
military,
and so
yeah.
they're used to the regimen, they're used to the uniform and the way that things are supposed to be done. So oftentimes what happens with us is we have military students that will take some of the younger students under their wing and they mentor them.
Isn't that nice? That's
There's
that's
also
a nice
a level
thing.
of self-confidence that I notice with them.
Yeah.
Is that, you know, you put a challenge in front of them and they're not afraid to step up and accept that.
Yeah.
And when you think about culinary, there is a kind of military style about it with the chain of command, the way responsibilities flow and different duties.
So what is the chain of command? I mean, we've got the chef is in charge. We have watched enough TV to know we are very clear about that. But there's different varying levels of being a chef, are there not?
Yes, and it's kitchen brigade, it would be called, where the highest level would be the executive chef, and then under he or she would be sous chef. Sometimes that would be an executive position.
So would that be like a chief operating officer or something?
Yes.
Yes, similar.
Yeah. And then from there it will go down to, could go to the executive pastry chef, and then to executive banquet chef, and then chef de partie, and then line cooks, and then commis. So there is a chain of command that goes down, and as long as each position knows what they're responsible for, it's very well orchestrated, and it flows very well.
And that really is an international
It is.
system,
Yes.
is it not? Yeah.
Yes.
What are we seeing now? Sorry, I got distracted. We're looking at some shrimp being sautéed, it looks like. And that looks like your shrimp being sautéed there.
Oh, it is?
From Tidewater. So what's the future look like for food service in the region?
Well, not just in the region, but in general. I think, I mean, the beautiful thing about this business is people need to eat.
Yes, they do.
And no matter what the economy, no matter what the economic situation that we're dealing with, people are willing to spend a little bit more for that better quality, higher end food, and you hear about that all the time. And I think that's a big thing that is always going to keep things going. And people are going to be led by their stomachs. And at the end of the day, that keeps people in businesses and jobs. And that's one thing that we really push. And that's great because it keeps for high numbers of there's jobs out there.
Yeah,
in
exactly.
other words,
Yeah.
just because of that, the hospital
create their own jobs,
exactly.
too.
Right, yes.
So we try to teach them that when they leave culinary school, they don't just have to go and work in a restaurant, that they can create their own position, either personal chef or now with
I want one
local,
of those, by the way.
local produce, and we talk more about sustainability. A lot of times some of the students will go and team up with farmers, fishermen,
Really? That's
and things like that. So we want them to see the broad spectrum where they don't have to spend all their time behind a kitchen line, that they can go out there and make a lot of difference in the world just because they love food. I tell them it's 10% of what we do is about the food. The other 90% is about business.
It's true.
Right. And enjoying serving people, and there's nothing better, and that's one thing about food service that's so great, which is why I think we all stay in it, even though it's hard work, is you get that immediate gratification. When you serve a dish that's beautiful and delicious, people respond to it immediately, and it just makes you want to continue to do it, and just so it's pleasing people. But you had mentioned about sustainability also, and that's what we're trying to teach our students. I think collectively we can say that because of the things that are happening worldwide and nationally and locally. We are guardians or custodians, if you will, of our food supply. So it starts here with education, and we're introducing a lot of that to our students to use more regional and seasonal food. And we're also, our guests enjoy it because they're getting the freshest possible and best products of the season.
And boy, in this region, we do have so many great local foods. I mean, you can have a great feast on the local food.
Well, I was just going to say, in fact, we're planting our garden tomorrow for CIV. We have our own garden over by ECPI, because of course ECPI is our main. Yeah, exactly. They're our affiliates. It's where our accreditation's through and all that. But we have our own garden. We plant it tomorrow. It happens to be Earth Day. Yeah. So I'm going to Hampton to plant with the elementary school where I volunteer with.
Yeah, you love that elementary school.
They just came on a field trip today. They had a wonderful time. I had students who volunteered and took them around on a tour, did a demo. They had a fantastic, something like, this is the best field trip we've ever been on. But I'm going up there to help plant them, and then coming back and planting our garden. We have bees, we have fruit trees. It's a fantastic.
You said that about the bees.
It's a wonderful, wonderful experience for the students.
We just did a radio show today about bees, and I was really. It's a pretty astounding thing to note the decrease in the bee population and the impact that that's going to have on fruit and vegetables.
It's a virus.
There's some estimates are that by 2020, all of our fruits and vegetables will be imported if we don't resolve this bee thing. I mean, that's a stunning development that we would not have sort of the
it's not to be taken for granted.
Mass growing agriculture, right? Yeah. So how is it that these food trends develop? You mentioned bees, which brings me to honey, because now honey is a big deal, isn't it? Different types of honey and the like. So how does this all develop, do you think?
Well, I think one of the aspects is that, it's the chefs out in the field and culinary students also in schools that are experimenting with things, and they're taking old techniques and old methods that have proven to be tried and true, and they're trying to put a different spin on it, using different ingredients and different methods of preparation. So it's kind of the opportunity to express their creative side.
Do you see something coming down the pike in terms of what's the next big food trend?
I think that the sustainability is really going to stick around for quite a while to come. Most of the ones I've seen, recently molecular gastronomy, everybody was interested in molecular gastronomy, and that was a big, wonderful thing, and and that's kind of taken a backseat now to the sustainability and the going green and that type of thing. So the trends are always going to come and go, but I think that the good, sound, solid, basic techniques that we try to emphasize in culinary schools have proven that they're going to always exist. So,
are we almost done with the cupcakes? Honestly.
Oh my gosh, I hope so.
I'm so over the cupcakes. There's 2 shows on cupcake makers. Really, come on, people.
And wedding cakes. About 5-6 years ago, that was the big thing, to have a wedding cake with tiers of cupcakes.
Yes.
I think they're going back more now to the traditional, although maybe a little slanted and lopsided in the cake design, a little avant-garde.
Yeah.
But
So you think the cupcakes we might be close to being done with them?
Maybe less.
They're yummy, but really, come on. I mean, how many real cupcakes can you eat? What do you see as the great food trends coming down the pipe?
Well, I try to do a lot of reading, and I try to encourage my students to do a lot of reading so that they stay ahead of it.
Yes.
December of last year, I did a lot of researching where they were talking about pies were going to replace cupcakes. And so I'm really excited about that, because I like pie a whole lot more than I like cake.
Yeah, we get our vegetables on that one, or our fruits on that one, don't we? So, Chef Deanna, what trends do you see coming down the pike?
Well, I agree with Chef Paul and Jonathan saying about sustainability. I actually feel that we're almost going back to our grandparents or great-grandparents, the way they used to eat, where nothing was wasted, all parts of the produce virtually, all parts of the animal virtually, and that's what we're teaching in our international cuisine and American regional. And having the students sample these different products, if you will, and learn how to cook them, and they're excited about it. It's not just going out and buying this pre-made mix or package that and adding water and bringing to a simmer. They're learning how to fabricate, how to break it down, and how to cook the actual ingredient, and also pickling and jarring, and that way using produce that's seasonal, extending it for the pantry for after the winter. And but it's going back to what our grandparents did.
And they all did the pickling and the jarring, didn't
yes,
they?
Yeah.
That's interesting.
Yeah, it was interesting. We just did some pickling in our Grand Marché class, and the students, some of them had never seen that finished process before, and so for them to compare that to, we had some commercially prepared products, and for them to taste the difference was pretty
it's an
interesting.
amazing thing, isn't it? Chef Jonathan, what food trends do you see coming at us?
I really hope is to emulate what everyone else has said. The local food movement seems to be pretty big, going away from sort of corporate food, mass-produced. We're globalized, and we've got to recognize that we're a global society that has its great benefits, but it also has its stark negatives. And the big ones being that the importation of foods from other countries are starting to implement our food systems where their standards might not be as high as ours. And we're starting to see that, like the melatonin that was from China and things like that. They're ending up in milk and formula and all that. It's scary. It's really, really frightening. And you look at that, and as you were talking about the bee population decreasing, that could be another thing on the horizon if we don't do something now and look towards local rather than importing things. And even I think locals trumping organic. Organic had a big push about for the last 10, 20 years. Organics have been boom, boom. But right now I think that local is trumping it. People are saying, you know what? As long as it's coming from right down the road versus from California, 3,000 miles away flying in organic, I'd rather have the local person who might be using some chemicals and other forms of pesticides, herbicides, even if they're just because I know it's not coming far. It's a lower
It's a lower impact on the
emissions and everything like that. It's more green in that regard. So I think that's starting to trump it, and I think we're going to see more and more of that.
Well, here's the bottom line on the bees. Don't kill the bees.
Right.
No.
Call your friendly local beekeeper. I just learned this. I'm all big on the bees. So you want to call your beekeeper, your local beekeeper. You can find them. Just go online, put Hampton Roads beekeepers. You'll find them. And they'll come and collect those bees and take them back and make sure that they make more bees, which is what we need. There you go. I want to thank all of you for being with us. And again, Chef Dedra, we've got opportunities for people who maybe don't want to take a full-on degree program or certificate program at Culinary Institute of Virginia. That's chefva.com. Chef Deanna, thank you for being with us from TCC. And if people are interested in more information about your program, tcc.edu. And Chef Paul Kennedy, thank you for joining us as well. And that's artsinstitutes.edu / Virginia Beach. Get my hyphens and my slashes mixed up. What are you going to do? Thanks very much. I'll be back in a moment with a final thought. Food is big business, not only in Hampton Roads, but across the country, as you've heard in this conversation tonight. There are at least 2 full-time food channels on cable television, and I am not happy that one of the longest-running soap operas I've invested in since high school is being replaced by a show called Chew, but I'm not bitter. It used to be we put food on a plate, now we style it. There are more mushroom, grape, and tomato varieties than ever, and our grocery stores now feature chefs if preparing meals is just a little too much. I, for one, like this variety. I used to buy spaghetti sauce, now I buy organic pasta sauce, and I feel a little guilty that I didn't corral some heirloom tomatoes and make it on my own. It's a happy problem to have, all this choice. And it's a bit confounding to know that despite all this choice, there are still people hungry in Hampton Roads. They now call it food insecurity. The food bank reports that more than 2,000 people are served each month at their center, and they give out 5,000 pounds of food a month, the legacy, it's believed, of the recession. So if you're grateful that you have the opportunity to choose the food you eat and you want to do something to help, here are two great places to make a start. The Food Bank of Southeastern Virginia at foodbankonline.org or the Food Bank of the Virginia Peninsula at hrfoodbank.org. Remember, you can watch this program again or any of our past broadcasts. Our website is whatmatters.tv, and that's where you'll also find any number of ways to get in touch with us. We always like to hear from you because you always give us great show ideas, and we really like those. You can also join us as a fan on Facebook, and if you'll write to us at whatmatters@whro.org, we'll be glad to send you a weekly newsletter to let you know what we're working on. We should have put some of those pastry recipes in this week's edition. Sadly, we did not. We'll work on getting more complete on that. On the radio dial, I hope that you will join us for Hearsay. That's on 89.5 WHRV FM, and we are live each weekday at noon and happy to take your calls there. Thanks for watching. I'm Kathy Lewis. Don't kill the bees. We'll see you next time for another look at What Matters.